So warm welcome to today's webinar on Keep Calm and Using Mixed Methods. This webinar is in a special format. It's a panelist format with a discussion. It starts with a short scene setting and introduction, and then is followed by a discussion round. And at the panel, we do have today Dr. Madea Al-Balushi, Dr. Anna Faria, and Professor Dr. Bostjan Gomiscek, who will provide exactly the initial scene setting. And with this, we hope that the learning outcome of today's webinar is, Bostjan, could you move on further, please? That you understand a bit better how to present the main characteristics of qualitative and quantitative methods, understand the main benefits of applying mixed methods in research, and to get a bit familiar with the different types and sequences that mixed methods provides. And exactly afterwards to follow the panel discussion on reasons, application, and examples of mixed methods in doctoral research applied. So with this, let me introduce our panelists. Dr. Madea Al-Balushi is a PhD graduate from the University of Wollongong in Dubai. Dr. Anna Faria is, together with myself, one of the Doctoral Tab co-founders, and we have had a number of academic roles through our career. And finally, we do have Professor Dr. Bostjan Gomiscek, who is a Doctoral Tab mentor and also taking care of the academic curriculum with the Doctoral Tab. So with this, let's move into the next slide, please. And some introductory questions for us to raise is there a need for use of mixed methods in your research study? So why are you doing mixed methods?
And I would say that's the most important part of everything, okay? You just really get actually to understand, do you need them or you don't need them? Because if you don't need them, don't use them. Don't complicate things. Don't make them complex. Just stay actually, as we said, calm and go with qualitative or quantitative. But if you have a really good justification for that, then yes, definitely. It will help you to build up a probably stronger study.
Right, but it also well could add 1, 2, or 3 years to your research time, because applying a method is time intense. If you apply more than one method, it will add up time. So
I guess Dr. Madea will be able to say something to that. But
Dr. Anna
not yet, probably. Okay, the next question is actually, if we are able to answer yes, then, as we said, we have to think a little bit further, and we have to think about what type of mixed methods are you intending actually to apply. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. As well as another thing which is quite important is the sequence you are planning to use, and you have to understand why are you using this sequence. Because as we will say in a few minutes, it is complementary, or sometimes it is even informing each other or different, let's say, parts or different phases of your study. So these questions are, I would say, quite important to understand them. If you, or after you have solved them, then you are actually on a good way actually to present, to start doing your research in a good way using the mixed methods. So now I will, as we said, I should not talk too much today. So I will just now go actually quite fast through a few slides, just as Andrea said the pace as well in this case. So majority of you probably know anyway what are the main characteristics of, let us say, first qualitative methods. One of the really important things is, and that is why we really like qualitative methods, is that it really generates rich and deep data. So we are going into depth, and we really can actually extract important topics, or if you want to, themes, which are actually linked to the understanding of the visual meaning in the context regarding the people. That means your participants. Is it now interviews one-to-one, or is it focus groups? It doesn't matter. Or environments, whenever you are kind of, let's say, trying to understand how the things are running in an organization and similar. Another thing which is important is that we are, in most of the cases, using open-ended questions, structured but open-ended questions. Another thing which is quite good in a way is that we usually include quite small samples. We have done it from, let's say, 12 to 24. That was kind of, okay, I have now one student who is actually doing 27 interviews, but that is still kind of small, but don't see it as really small, because actually with all the work you have to do, with all the transcripts, with all actually the analysis, it is quite a chunk. And as Andreas said before, do not do it if it's not needed, because it can really extend your study. As I have mentioned before, deep data, and always in a way from participants' work environment, settings, things like that. So we are really trying to understand what is going on in their, let's say, workplace, or in their processes, in their way of communication, in their whatever we are kind of studying. Another thing which is probably clear to majority of us is that we are kind of using inductive approach, and that means that we are trying to understand first what we said, what's going on with people actually in different environments, and that means that we are kind of searching for meanings, for example, and based on these meanings we are trying to develop some topics which will be finally kind of merging into general themes, which are then actually kind of the outcome of our research. Another thing which is probably quite interesting, and it is actually making it different to the quantitative studies, is that the structure of your thesis is rather flexible. So it's really up to you when we go actually to the other one, as I'll be saying in a few minutes. The quantitative studies have kind of a clear pathway how we do write actually thesis chapter by chapter, or section by section. So to wrap it up a little bit, when do we use qualitative methods? I just put actually now 3 points. We could have actually some more, but let's say that these ones are probably the most important ones. When you are exploring or trying to describe really a phenomenon, and usually I hope, and definitely sure in your case, it will be something new. That's why we are doing actually the PhDs. Whenever we are trying to identify the patterns, topics, as we said, and finally, the main outcome will be anyway that you will be developing themes, and usually based on our data, we are saying that the themes are emerging out of the data, or sometimes we might use a priori topics, and then many times actually adding some emerging topics in order to understand the whole context in a better way. So this is shortly about qualitative methods. And once again, I don't see any questions, I don't see anything. So in case I'm too fast, or in case something is not clear, just please come in with your questions. You do not bother us. We are actually happy to answer these questions immediately during our presentation.
Just confirming there's nothing in chat at this point.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, that's why I was complaining. Okay. Anyway, let us touch a little bit the quantitative methodology and a little bit comparison between the two. Usually, we are testing the relationships among measurable variables. We can talk about dependent, independent. Okay, maybe we can add even a mediating, moderating variables if you want to. Dr. Madea will say something about that probably. How she was, yeah, okay.
Yes.
What we are trying to use is always actually closed-ended questions, which are usually included or presented through the questionnaires. The data collection instruments are, as I mentioned before, I mean, we are using questionnaires, and because we are going broader, we are saying that we are using kind of surveys, and the outcome of these surveys will be in quantitative actually studies, always the numbers. That means kind of quantitative data. Why? In order to be able then to apply the statistical methods on this data. And a big difference is to the qualitative methods that we are using now, big data sets, so big samples, in order to be able really to kind of validate as well as generalize actually our results. Another thing which is quite challenging in qualitative studies is to kind of present, justify, tell what you have done in order that your validity and reliability are actually given. In quantitative is much easier because usually you are using, once again, clear, let's say, tools, or if you want, tests, which will tell you whether you are there or not there. Another thing that goes once again towards what Andreas said before, it requires less time, and in most of the cases it costs less money as well. These are two things which are actually quite nice, I would say, for your research, because it speeds it up and makes it really much cheaper. The structure of the report is, as I have mentioned before, rather structured, which makes it maybe a little bit easier for you as well, because you have kind of a clear, I would say, guidelines, how you have to do it, how you have to present actually your results, how you have to deal with the analysis. So, wrapping it up once again, researchers choose quantitative methods whenever they are trying to test, let's say, maybe could be actually not theories, as well as should we say their own frameworks. And important thing is actually that they are trying to generalize the results, because they are using a big sample, and that makes it actually kind of possible. No questions still? What should I do? Okay, so let us go to the 3 definitions, just in order, I mean, the simplest one, I would say, just in order to give you once again a short overview. What does this mean for the ones who might be actually rather new in this area? The first one is coming from Bergman. What does he say? The mixed methods are a combination of at least one qualitative and at least one quantitative component in a single research study. So that means you have to apply at least one quantitative and one qualitative part, step, phase, however you will actually name it. This one, probably the majority of you know Creswell as one actually of the leading, I would say, authors and experts in the methodology. So what did he say? This is a little bit longer one. Mixed methods consist of the collection or analysis of both qualitative and quantitative data in a single study, what we have said, in which the data are collected concurrently or sequentially. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well, just to give you actually a clear picture of it. And another thing which is important, to give a priority. So is it qualitative a priority or is it quantitative a priority? And then you have to involve the integration of the data at one stage or at more stages. It depends, even if you have just 2 stages. Some of the studies have even more stages. But important is, once again, that we combine actually or inform one phase to the other phase. So these are important things. And maybe a little bit a simpler one, coming from Creswell as well. A mixed methods research design is a procedure for collecting, analyzing, and mixing both qualitative and quantitative data in a single study. Okay, and usually why? To understand a research problem better, because many times you will see that you even don't have enough literature review, that you don't understand how the things are running. And because of that, you will try to understand. And usually we say you will be trying actually to build up a conceptual framework based on the qualitative analysis. And that will be then actually informing or leading to the let's say, second part where you'll be using quantitative methodologies in order to verify and, as we said, generalize actually your results. So if I summarize, what is actually the mixed methods? We can say it is a combination of methods that has complementary strength and non-overlapping weaknesses. So that's the idea behind it. We're trying actually to take from both, let's say, types of methods their best and trying to actually help to overcome the weaknesses of one or the other method. And the purpose is to supplement or complement the validity and reliability of your results. So that's another thing which is quite important, and sometimes you will we will have to use kind of both of them in order to reach to that stage. And now the last, I guess, 4 slides or something like that, I will just really present just the idea, and that's why I put here actually basic types, because we could go even deeper, but for that, I guess we don't like to do that today. Maybe we can actually use at one point a workshop for that in order that you will be understanding the things better. So before I mentioned concurrent and sequential design, and in this case, I'm presenting now one slide where we are talking about concurrent design. What does this mean? One phase project, that means everything is running concurrently at the same time. If I go a little bit deeper, let us say we collect qualitative and quantitative data at the same time. Then we have collected them. We will then be analyzing them, the qualitative part, the quantitative part. And finally, we will use them actually to support the final interpretation of your study, what you have done. So concurrent, all of them in a way at the same time. If we go to the sequential, let's say, design, and here we are going a little bit deeper and we are saying sequential explanatory design, because what are we doing here? First, we have collected the quantitative data, and the quantitative data will or has informed the qualitative data, okay? And based on the results of the first phase, we will be shaping, for example, the focus groups or the questions for the focus groups, or I don't know, protocol, interview protocol, and based on that, we will then actually reach to the final interpretation. And as we have mentioned before, we said you have to take a decision where the focus is. And in this case, for example, we'll be saying the bigger focus was on the quantitative data. And because there were some questions probably coming out of the quantitative results, you will be using additionally, let's say, the qualitative part in order to explain it better, to understand actually the things, how they are running. And the opposite would be sequential design once again, but as we said, here we are starting with qualitative part, which informs the quantitative. So after you have understood, let's say, a situation in a context, then you want to see whether that is, let's say, really true for a bigger sample size, maybe for more organizations, for it depends what are you doing. And because of that, you will be then actually including the quantitative part in order to have a bigger, as we mentioned, actually data set, and through that you can generalize things. And that will be actually then giving you the final interpretation. So as we said, first, qualitative data, based on that, you will be then shaping your quantitative part. You will do actually, the analysis. And we mentioned larger focus in this case will be on the qualitative data. And here we said you can actually first use the focus group or individual interviews with different people or whatever it is. And then you will, based on the results, shape your survey questions. And to make it even a little bit more complicated, what you can do, you can have even actually more than just one phase or one part. You can start maybe with qualitative, then you go to quantitative. However, you are not really clear what has happened here. You cannot actually kind of explain it in detail. And that's why you might add another part, let's say, of qualitative to explain maybe some deviations which were actually not expected. So that could be another part, how you actually do. And as we said, 3 or even more steps or phases in your research design. That would be kind of, in short, just to, as we said, set the context, what we are trying to discuss today. But I have another slide. Maybe we don't even have to go into detail, but it is for you who will be trying, let's say, to challenge the mixed methods research approach. Here I just put actually some steps, how they are actually following each other, or what you have to think about. But as I mentioned, I just mentioned maybe 2 or 3. The first one is really, you have to understand and kind of be clear that that is needed. Don't do it, as we said, if it's not needed. Then you have to identify and justify, and that will be quite a nice chapter, probably, or part of a chapter in your thesis, that you will be justifying the rationale for mixed methods research. Okay, then it is clear. Then you will define the research strategy. So how you will be collecting the data, as we mentioned, the type, we mentioned actually the priority and the sequence. Then you will be collecting the data based on maybe interviews or questionnaires, as we said, surveys. It's really up to you. After that, you will be analyzing the data. Depends what was it concurrent or was it sequential? That will be actually defining, are you doing it at the same time, or rather actually first one and then the second one? That is kind of concurrently or individually. And finally, you will write your thesis, and you will have to think about it, as I mentioned before. Will you be writing in a concurrent way or rather sequential way? That means first, let's say, qualitative, then quantitative, or vice versa. And with that, I hope I have done it in a clear way, that it is hopefully clear to all of us what we are trying to discuss today. And now we will be getting actually insights from the PhD students who have done it, and don't guess what, they have even finished it, and they have been actually awarded a PhD some time ago. So it is doable, it can be done, but I have to promise you that you will be sweating. Okay, anyway, doesn't matter, a little bit more, a little bit more or less of sweating, it's not so bad. Okay, thank you. And now I will give the word to Andreas, who will be hosting, let's say, or moderating the discussion.
Okay. Would you like to unshare, and that way we can have you all visually on the one screen? Thank you. There's nothing in chat at this point.
I see that.
Thank you, Bostjan, for the great scene setting. And as Bostjan also has shown, it might be sequential for the reasons that the qualitative data afterwards attempts to find out and explore something that the quantitative data didn't explain. Now, if this is the case, you can well imagine ex ante, you didn't knew that the quantitative data cannot explain everything. So you might see your research starting as a pure quantitative study and then being continued as a mixed method study. So also that is something that could be happening. And with this, as Bostjan introduced, we today have Dr. Madea and Dr. Anna, who both in their studies actually used mixed methods. and therefore they can share with us their experience. And so let's start with the most important question, as Bostjan pointed out. Why did you use mixed method research in the first instance? Might I ask that to the two of you, starting with Dr. Madea, please?
Hi, everybody. First of all, I'll say yes, it's doable. However, I need to add something else. Actually, I won award of best PhD students from International Professional Innovative Society Management System. So it was one of the best awards in 2019 as related to creativity and innovation. So it's doable and it could be well rewarded also. This is number one for them. So they can do it. It's doable. In terms of the study, actually my study was about creativity and its definition UAE, how it has been implemented. Since we have so many achievements related to creativity, however, we don't know, as a phenomenon, it was really new. So, and there was no studies, particularly in public sector organizations. We had only limited studies, which were in only private sector organizations. So I started my study. It was actually, I started with the qualitative part. It was about defining creativity, or can I share the?
Sure, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
but don't get nervous, okay? After she has shared that, okay?
Okay.
I'm
I'm getting
scarce.
shy already to share my experience.
So I used two phases. Is it clear?
Coming up, there it is.
Yeah. So the thesis title was Assessing Factors That Influence Employees' Creativity in Public Sector Organization. I have selected the case of the Dubai government due to the uniqueness of Dubai in this area. So I started with collecting data from the key decision makers from 3 public sector organizations. So I asked them questions such as what is creativity, innovation, what is the relationship between them? Then I asked them what are the factors that influencing employees to be creative and innovative at workplace. So they said that there are 3 types of factors: individual factors, organizational factors, as well as the governmental factors, government regulations and incentives. So when we talk about the sample of this part, it was only 9 employees, since they are key decision makers and it's difficult to find more than them. The result shows that there are 3 types of factors that influence employees. It's individual factor, organization factors, as well as external factors. Also, the results show that the applicability of one of the main theory, creativity theory at UAE, which asked also as which showed as a limitation that there are the needs for external studies, which talks about the impact of external factors on employees' creativity. So after collecting the data and analyzing them, so actually I moved to the cycle 2. Cycle 2 was a quantitative study. Since Dr. Bostjan said it needs a big size of people, so I had 666 employees working in 3 public organizations. I have distributed the questionnaire. I have collected the data.
Might I shortly ask you to move to full screen?
Sorry?
To move to full screen.
Sure. Is it okay?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, it was 668 employees. The results shows that, first of all, the results in cycle 1 and 4 to cycle 2. This was number 1. Cycle 2, number 2, the result shows, okay, there are 3 types of factors, but then we reach to the the mediating effect also. So it was nice journey. It's doable. They can do it.
So how long did it take you, may I ask?
Only we are talking about data collection.
Yes.
For both cycles.
Yes.
Almost 1 year.
Almost
and analyzing the data.
All right. Was that the time that you anticipated, or did it go quicker or took longer?
Actually, took longer than I expected. But it's nice when I see it now after graduating. It's worth it.
It's worth it. That's what matters. What were the main obstacles that you had to overcome? Do you still recall them?
Yeah. Let's say I had the good access to the people, so it was not the access to people, but it was the duration. When, for example, when we talk about the key decision makers, it was not easy to meet them in a small period of time. This is number one. Number two, the results. When we finish, number two, when we talk also about cycle two, maybe I was working harder and harder and trying to collect as much as I can, which led to 1 year. The other problem is that maybe when data analysis, we came to a mediating effect, which was totally different than the direct relationship that we were counting at the beginning.
What were the surprises, the big surprises that came out for you personally?
For me, I remember that night, and I spoke to Dr. Bostjan, if he remembers, there was no direct relationship between all factors and the outcome, which was creativity.
All right. How did you prepare? How did you prepare for the technique of data collection? Have you practicing that on your own? Have you had some training? Did you try it before you conducted the actual study? What's your experience and your tips to others on there, on how to get ready?
Actually, when we reach this level, we said that maybe there is another story that the data wants us to know. So we start trying the mediators, the possible mediators, till we reach the right one. And it was a really good story for us. It says, as long as the government is encouraging, and we are talking about public sector, and there are regulations and incentives that encourages and motivates the employees, so everything will be fine, which was really a good lesson for the key decision makers in the UAE, particularly the public sector organization. So it was really good. I'm happy with that.
All right, cool. So
if I make just I'll do something and just show actually what was the idea behind it, or what was actually the outcome. I don't know if you can see my screen or not. That was actually Mardea's.
I see arrows.
Framework. Many. These were actually, all the different constructs, or let's say, and then that was what she has mentioned actually, the new one, which was kind of mediating. And when we have calculated, we saw that actually everything runs through the mediation. So it was actually something really nice. It helped us actually to find some new stuff.
All right, let's play the same question to Dr. Anna. So why did you use mixed methods research in your study?
Okay, good afternoon or good evening or good day to everyone. I was looking into the role of behavior and in the transition to more energy efficient behaviors at home, at the household level in Portugal. And back then, when I started my study, there was plenty of literature, but there was really no application to the Portuguese reality. So basically the needs of having exactly a mixed methods approach came from the fact that I first wanted to get, to gain an insight and to understand the big thematics and themes that exactly were relevant for the Portuguese reality. And only then at the second stage, I exactly looked to enter into the details and to explore the attitudes, the behaviors, the experiences that people had through focus groups and interviews.
So in your case, it was the other way around. You started with quantitative research, which was followed.
Exactly.
Qualitative.
I first had a national survey, actually, that exactly allowed me to explore the big themes. And then based on that, I took those ones and explore in more detail in focus groups and interviews.
How difficult was it to find the participants?
Well, back then, I was working for an energy agency, and I was the project manager of the first profiling of the Portuguese population. Okay, so I was in a unique position to be able to include some questions within a larger survey. Okay, and this is as charming as it can be, actually from a PhD perspective can be quite tricky, okay? Because I still recall that during the Viva, I was deeply questioned in this area, because obviously you need to demonstrate that that is your own work. Okay, so I isolated exactly a number of questions that from the literature were important to me, and exactly then the follow-up research is based on these ones. I think for a normal PhD DBA student, managing to have a nationwide, a countrywide survey might be quite challenging, to be frank. Is that answering your question, Andrea?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So how long did it take you, and how much did you anticipate it would take you? How much did it take actually, and how much did you assume it would take?
I was a working student, so let's please also take that into consideration, that things always will take a bit longer. But it took around 18 months. And also, I think the part that took most time was to me to make sense of what exactly the outcome of the survey. Okay, because obviously when we enter and after doing all the literature review, even if not intentionally, we have some assumptions. And I was quite surprised by the initial results from the survey. Namely, when people told that they already did everything that they can do to save energy. Yeah, and exactly from a technological perspective, I knew that was not possible. Okay, so, and that was actually the starting point of really, like what I call the juice of my research, because that result actually triggered me to understand there's something wrong here. Yeah, so let's really try to understand what do people mean by, like I already save everything I can, because this is crucial if you think that, like the aim after the PhD has been submitted was exactly to promote a transition in terms of behaviors. And exactly as a result, I actually found out that people are not willing to change. Yeah, they value too much the comfort at the family level, at the household level. So as long as they can afford, they will maintain their energy use level. And this to me was really a surprise. How much time have I anticipated? At that point in time, like I think that if one is fair, we do a nice Gantt chart and say, like it will take me 6 months, and after 2-3 months, you already understood that, well, it will take definitely longer than I initially forecasted.
So do you want to say, Anna, that you were not planning mixed methods, but you were pushed into?
No. Since the beginning, I planned mixed methods. I had exactly. There were no reference studies for the Portuguese market. Yeah, there were quite lots of transnational studies. There was lots of theory from the behavioral economics area, but there was no indication of what was true for the Portuguese reality. So that was the first stage, basically, the survey, to understand which were the big categories, the big themes that exactly were relevant for the.
Can I be unpleasant?
Yes,
and ask, why did you start with the quantitative part then? If you did not really understand stuff, why didn't you start with the qualitative?
I did understood. No, I started because I understood which were the variables, which were the constructs that from the literature shown exactly that they had the impact on behavior. Yeah, so I just was not sure about the ones that would be more relevant. I could have started the study the other way around, and I had to smile when a while ago you exactly said, like that the explanatory, the exploratory starts qualitative followed by quantitative, because my research was mainly exploratory and exactly started the other way around. So from what you're exactly asking, it could have been an alternative way of naturally doing the study, as much as, and in the insight, and after some years passed, I likely made my life quite miserable by adopting the mixed methods, because, I could have started my research from the point, like considering the initial survey as a literature source and taking it from there, okay? But yeah, I think that when we are students, we do not have that ability and that security to do these type of things. Yeah. but yeah, it's still as exactly as Dr. Mardaya mentioned. It still made quite some fun, you know, to go through all the process. I guess that the main fear that I had, and I don't know if Dr. Mardai also can confirm that, is that during the process of writing my thesis, my supervisors kept on asking me like 2 questions. Yeah, one of, are you triangulating? Are you sure you don't need to triangulate all of your your data? You know, like, are you sure you can defend this during the Viva? And that was a bit scary because exactly it's your first time. Yeah, you have no reference, and you have your best reference are your supervisors, and they are the one that are asking you these questions. Yeah. And the second one was exactly the number of times that it was mentioned that sometimes mixed methods is a bit dangerous for a doctoral level research project, and it's a bit dangerous to the degree that depending on who the examiner is, yeah, that can go wrong. Okay, and if I look at the full experience, those were 2 key stress factors, if I want to call it. Yeah, I was happy with the last, like my last draft of my thesis, but I was stressed before the Viva because exactly I had no idea what would happen. Basically,
that has nothing to do with mixed methods.
No, but I know that has nothing to do. But if you have those 2 questions permanently being asked, you are kind of in pre-panic mode, like that.
So, can I maybe ask Mardea a question? Mardea, would you change anything if you would do it now once again about the same study? What would you have? What would you change? What would you do in a different way?
Maybe I'll focus on the moderating effects. Let me see it. Till now, we didn't explore that part. But I mean, it will be the same mixed method because I am still with the mixed method. But I mean, the technique.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, if I recall that actually, there was actually no evidence of that in the literature.
Yeah, in the literature, yeah, there was no evidence.
So that's why your theoretical framework was actually not including that, and the results have shown that. You know, so yeah. So now after you have published that, somebody has it easier.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Okay.
Yeah.
And you, Anna, would you change something?
No. I think that at this point in time, I am aware that I could have explored the topic in different ways, but the knowledge that I gained through the process was really valuable. And I managed to defend during the Viva, so everything ended up going very well.
Maybe another question to both of you. What was the data analysis method for each of the methods? That means qualitative, quantitative. What were you using?
For me, it was qualitative, semi-structured interviews with key decision makers, and then I moved to survey questionnaire.
What about the analysis?
In vivo.
Qualitative, for the qualitative, okay.
In vivo program. And then when we talk about the quantitative, it was a survey questionnaire. We used the SPS, and we used also the AMOS.
Structural equation modeling.
Yeah, structural equation modeling.
I'm the old-fashioned type of one, so all the qualitative was so I exactly had thematic followed by content and comparative analysis for the focus groups and the interviews. With regards with the survey, since I was mainly describing exactly the situation, I was not looking for establishing any type of relationship or dependency. I basically used descriptive instruments, you know, like to throw the population. And I see Taufik as a question.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Thank you for this webinar. In fact, this is not my first time joining you here in those webinars on Dr. Hub. I really appreciate your webinars. So just to introduce myself again, for the first time, I guess. I'm Taufik, a teacher of English here in Morocco. I am a first-year doctoral student. I'm doing a research, in fact, on related to social studies, to social sciences, I'm sorry. And I think that I'm working on exploratory study, okay, using mixed method. My question is as this: is there a minimum number of questionnaires that we need to use? And the same question for interviews: is there a minimum number of interviews that we can use? Because normally in my research, I decided, I did myself. I know it's first year, but I don't know if this is true or right or wrong. I decided that working with students, I will work with them, I mean, with them using questionnaires, okay? While with the professors, university professors, because my work is related to higher education, university students will be dealt with using questionnaires, and university professors, I will use interviews. Thank you.
Yeah, who wants to answer that?
Who wants to answer that? Because I know there are two directions of answers. Now I will
let you answer.
Bostjan for quite some years. He will put some numbers next to it. This you will never get out of my mouth. So Bostjan, throw some numbers in.
No, I mean, what we usually say is actually we are kind of following the way that when you are analyzing the data, that the things are actually repeating. So we are saying,
yes,
when we reach the saturation point, at that point we are kind of happy. That means whenever you say, let's say, but I mean, from my perspective now, as I said, we usually, first of all, you have to explain why you are using, let's say, as Mardea said before, 9. Or as I said, I have now another student who is going actually with 27, but she's doing that in 3 different countries. And because that is important, we wanted to have actually 9 in each of the countries. Okay, then if we go to other, let's say, other PhDs we have had or I have supervised, we were actually always saying, let us start with a number which is close to 10, analyze that, and then see whether you are getting new results based on, let's say, new interviews. But usually, I mean, I will throw numbers and I will say that from, I would say 12 to 24 or something like that, that are you on a safe side, but you have to show clearly in your PhD that the saturation point was reached. That is, do you agree, Dr. Mardea, with me?
I totally agree with you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. On the other side, now when we're talking about the quantitative methods, it depends what tool or let's say what method are you taking. And for each of those, you have kind of, you know, the minimum number and let's say good number and the excellent number. So it depends what tools are using. I don't know if you go with like Dr. Mardea was doing it with Amos, you will have to have, let's say, a little bit higher numbers. But if somebody takes, let's say, PLS, that is actually kind of another tool which gives you the opportunity to find those relationships for the structural equation modeling, which are actually a little bit lower. And if you are going with simple regressions or something like that, the majority will say that you need actually for each of the variables, let's say from 5, 7, 10, if more, even better. So there are some numbers there, which we usually try to, should I say, push on the students that they follow that. But that is once again, really just that we are sure that during the examination process, there won't be any issues. I know, I mean, Dr. Mardea was coming every single day to the university after her job. Really, I mean, unbelievable. I was there because I had to be there. Not had to, I wouldn't say had to be there. I was enjoying it actually being there, and we discussed a lot. And so often she came and she was in a bad mood and said, you know, you and your numbers and so many, and I don't know, and I'm not getting them. And she was really pushing hard and working hard actually to get her big actually sample size for the quantitative part. I know she was running around and doing really a lot. So yeah, but still, you know, it's always to be good on the safe side.
Thank you very much.
So, but after you have read some papers and actually do some studying of some methodology books, let's say start with Creswell or something like that, you will see that actually that will kind of.
That's exactly what I would like to add. That typically exactly when you're looking into the literature and you start noting exactly, you know, like how big are the samples that have been used, you know, like all of that, it will give you also indication of what should be your aim. And also to back up is just when it comes to qualitative is really the saturation is the keyword. I had 5 focus groups, and after the 4th, there was really not much new coming, and the 5th was really just for me to be sure that I was not missing. So there was really no added value of continuing searching, you know, I get at the same hole. And this is something that you can't say upfront what is the right number. You'll just feel it as you are conducting the focus groups or as you are conducting interviews. You would understand that, well, actually there's nothing new coming in. This is as long as you're asking the right questions, yeah, because this is a part that we are not covering during this webinar, but you will have exactly this feeling that it's useless for me to continue asking for other people, you know, because there is not really much new coming up.
Yeah, but still, you should not be actually too short in number, okay?
No, but that's why I'm saying after I had this feeling, I still had the last one to really make sure that it was not a feeling, but it was really what was happening basically.
See, I have seen a project proposal where the student wrote, "I will talk to 3 people," and so on. Okay, so that was a little bit, should I say? I don't know. What should I say? Short is nice, okay? Okay, let's say
not so much.
I'll be the too small number, okay? I'll be polite today. But yeah, on the other side, you know, we have seen, and Dr. Madea knows that actually, that we had a student with a pilot study of 450, let's say. Yeah. You know, that was definitely too much. I don't know what the first supervisors were doing, but pilot study with 450 is definitely no need for that.
Yeah, I think exactly. There's
no need things like that. So
at least not to reach.
So my just last sentence. My advice would be, while you are reading papers, take actually notes of all those things. Make actually a table and go with I don't know, title, methodology, sample size, who was actually included, and then so on. Methods,
main gaps, directions of future research.
Exactly, and then you will
but when it comes to the methodology, when it comes to the methodology, and
that will give you actually then even justification while you write, that you can actually cite all those guys and say actually that was done there and there and there, but definitely good journal papers. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So who is exactly having another question? The moderator or the participants?
Waits exactly to be given, played the ball back. No, that's a very good, well-maintained discussion. So there's no need to moderate. I think that's just how it is, and that's great. So, but now, given the question, are there any questions further from the audience? Shall we go off the record, perhaps? Or are there any points that are still to be discussed on the record? Any experiences to be shared still?
Not at my end. I think that exactly we understood the nice part, but also exactly what happens when time-wise and Viva-wise and all of that. So I'm confident.
Okay,
I'll share. I'll just take
sorry.
over.
Okay.
Sorry, Jack, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, did you mind if I share instead? Bostjan, because we have made a slight change on that last page.
I just shared. Can you see it?
Which is fine, exactly. So, Andreas, you want to take the lead here?
Yes, I can. So if any of you need some further training, hands-on training on that, be very much welcome. We are offering 2 hands-on workshops on that field. One is the fundamentals of conducting mixed method research, and the other one is focusing on designing your mixed method research project. And there are 2 dates that are given when these workshops will be run, but we will afterwards, surely, if you don't manage those dates or need other dates, just let us know. We are flexible on the dates. And with this, we will move officially off the record. Let me stop. Edit.